Good morning. My ego is fucking irritated as all hell. Like, man, she's just agitated for all sorts of reasons. Just to like being in the midst of like what I call this calibration period, really just like adjusting to what is. She's having a hard time catching up right now. God bless her heart. And so like every little thing pisses her off. I just had to like change one of my earrings, and she was like, yeah, I mean, it did kind of hurt because it needed to come out up here. This one, guys. Um, and then it's like the earring got stuck, and I'm just like, what the literal fuck? And it's interesting because I watched the movie The Secret, Dare to Dream last week, and it was all about that law of attraction concept of what you're putting out is what's coming back. So I'm like throwing out irritation because I'm fucking irritated, or that part of me is. And that's like literally what I'm getting back is just more irritation, which is also irritating. Like, let's just say it out loud. Like, that is fucking irritating. So sometimes we just have to hold space for those moments, and it's okay to like feel irritated. Like, how about the fact that I'm irritated, but then there's another part of me judging the irritation, like, oh, you shouldn't feel that way because like you've just meditated for over an hour, and like why, and then like in 5 minutes you're fucking pissed. And I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking pissed. Like, that's how I'm feeling. So why deny myself that experience? Because when we do that, it just really turns into something explosive. Just from my own past recollection, we just stuff and stuff and stuff because we don't think that we should feel a certain way. Like, keywords being think and should, words that are not really fantastic. Try not to use the word should. That we shouldn't use them, right? But thinking comes from a different place than feeling, right? So when we're really thinking hard and long and loud, and not necessarily loud out loud, but loud in our mind of what we can hear from ourselves, um, it can disassociate us from our body experience. And our physical body is telling us so much about what's going on, like the irritation. I feel it like it was in my chest, and now I feel it like at the base of my throat. So it's an interesting feeling. I'm also really hungry now that I'm like thinking about my body. I feel like actual hunger. I haven't eaten yet today. So I get to go do that, like checking in with the body. And so, yay, I get to go have something to eat and like nourish my body when I'm done here. But it's interesting because when we call out these emotions, like I could feel that anxiety, irritation in my chest, but as soon as I posed the question to me of like, oh, where am I feeling it in my body? It starts jumping around, right? Sometimes these feelings that are stuck inside, like they're fucking sneaky and crafty, and they don't want to leave, right? Because that's death to the story that is being held in these certain places in our body. And that's scary to the ego, because the ego is like, well, who the fuck would I be if I didn't have this story of like irritation or whatever, right? It's just like a jerk, knee-jerk reaction. So it's like, for her, it's scary. It's unknown is what it is. It's that unknown feeling of like, well, what is it like over there? And logically, when I think about it, well, of course, like, not being fucking irritated is great. There was more space for like the peace and calm and flow and ease and joy and love and all the things that I feel like most of the time anyways. And these little moments come in, right? I'm very present to it because it's also a form of like very deep subconscious self-sabotaging behaviors. Okay. So a lot of times when we're on like the cusp of these huge shifts, like life-altering shifts and change and transformation or awakening or whatever the fuck word you want to fill in the blank there. Just thought I was hearing something, although maybe I am. God only knows. Um, when we're on the verge of these huge shifts, this is when, like, this is the time when we really need to be more present. Not need to, but it would be, beneficial to be even more present to all of the things like knocking us down, so to speak, because it's part of the process. Feeling the fucking annoying feelings and letting them move up and out of the body is part of going to that next level. And when we deny ourselves the experience to fucking feel that, we block ourselves and we may experience some version of transformation, of course. Like I know that I'm already in it. It's already fucking happening. Like snowball down the damn hill. Like there's really no stopping it. But the irritation is kind of like rocks on the path. Like, if I was a snowball and I could have like some semblance of like directing where I'm going, it's like instead of just sort of shifting over a little bit to avoid the big rock, it's like I'm just choosing to fucking just roll right over it, right? It's just like a little speed bump. And that's okay too, because it's an opportunity to really clear what's there. Like there is an irritation pattern for me and my ego. Like when things don't go her way, she gets fucking pissed. It's a control thing, like because it's safer for her to try and control and then act out in irritation when it doesn't go her way because it'll keep me in that space. Like last night, I had a fucking incident too where, I'm working on readjusting my sleep patterns. And it's supposed to be lights out at 10 o'clock. Well, guess what? It wasn't fucking lights out until like 11 o'clock. And then I couldn't even fall asleep until probably midnight. And that's okay. Like, and she was fucking pissed, right? And she wasn't pissed about like, well, there was part of her pissed about not being able to sleep because I'm just tired. I know that I'm not getting quite enough sleep, but there's a lot of activity going on. So, she wanted to go to sleep, was pissed that we're not sleeping, pissed that like I'm pissed about not sleeping, right? So there's layers. It's like judging the judgment, but it's all coming from the same place. And I'm just like, okay, like it's okay. And just allowing myself to feel it. It's so fascinating. And I had an incident earlier yesterday and just working on a website, like I'm just really feeling more and more of that technology. Not a thing that interests me. Like it's beautiful and I'm so grateful to like be able to like record this and like post it online. But there's like other sort of things that are like busy work. And I'm just like, fuck all of that. It brings out that irritation. And it's just like, it's so interesting because there's this thing coming up of like, old stories of people telling me like, well, if you're going to be in business, then you have to like learn how to do these things. And I'm like, well, fuck you. No, I don't. I actually don't. Maybe you need to learn them for you. And that's beautiful, but I can fucking hire someone to do it for me. And I've been saying that to myself for like over a year and I've not hired anybody because I'm just like, have still been living that like pattern of needing to do what people say or else like I'm somehow a cop out or like I'm lazy or like not good enough or stupid or like whatever the fucking things it is, or like I'm not a good business owner because I choose to delegate things that are not coming from my highest. See how ridiculous that sounds when I say it out loud? Like, I know what is in my highest and I trust that now. And so it is on my list actually to hire somebody in the next month or so. Um, but in the past, I would have been like, oh, well, that's ridiculous. Like, you don't need someone, right? And like letting other people tell me that story too, and then taking it on as my own. And when I think about it, people telling me that story, like they can't afford to hire someone. So of course that they're going to give me their story and their perspective of you've got to just learn it's part of being a business owner. It's their our story? And how often are we taking on other people's stories and trauma and like experiences as our own? And then operating from that space instead of like allowing ourselves to be like liberated from all judgment and all opinion and all like hearsay and like normalcy, whatever the fuck that means, and doing what's in our highest. Like, how often are we ignoring that and not trusting because somebody else once told us this one thing that went bad, or like led us to believe a certain thing? And when we're not as deeply connected to our higher self and our intuition and the universe and like the power of who we are, like we will take that on. Like, I've done it so many times in life. And now in this version of my shift, like this next transformation, or the one that I'm just in right now, is shedding that, shedding what anyone says that I should be doing or need to do or need to learn, whatever. Like, fuck that. Doesn't need to happen. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. It's like fucking programming, and we take it on. And so like, and we don't have to. And so I guess that's like what I wanted to share is be aware of the story loops in your mind. Be aware of the mind loops that you're running, and then be aware of those external stories that you're pulling in and then kind of linking to your own mind loop, right? I know that just sounded like really crazy, because we're pulling in all this information, and when we're not standing in our true power, we can inadvertently take it in as our own. So be aware of what are you hearing, and how does that land in your body? How does it feel when someone makes a suggestion or tells you you should do a certain thing? Because that we're all projecting. Like, when we say you should do something, that's like our own projection of like what we feel that we need to do, or the way that we are doing it. And so because it works for us, we, in some ways we naturally want to help each other and say, here's what I'm doing. But then it becomes an attachment, right? Because we're coming from that ego like place of trauma, and it turns into this control of like, well, you should have done it this way, or you need to do it that way. Listen to your highest, listen to the universe, and trust the voice. That is the one that will guide you back into yourself and even further into your highest. Like, whatever you think your fucking highest is, it goes, it never ends, because we are constantly expanding out. And by doing that, we're actually going inward. And like, I know it's weird, but our expansion, like, there's no limit to how much we can expand. And as we shed these stories of like what should be, or like, oh, like I shouldn't feel irritated. Well, fuck, I feel irritated. And I get to be with that and feel it and like really dig into like, wow, what is this pattern of irritation? When was it for me? When was there a time in life when it wasn't safe for me to like trust my own intuition? When did that story begin for me? And so I get to be with that and like be open to receiving and like feeling that experience and bringing healing to myself, so I can dissolve the irritation pattern and get back, or not get back into, but even more into flow state, right? I'm very much like in flow, and I see how this irritation is coming to like dead stop that at some points, not all the time. But I'm flowing more and more these days. And, there's most of the time the ego is like on board and like happy about it. And it's like, yeah, like this is fun and great. And then when there's certain things that, she's very much has this busyness pattern, and that's dissolving now. I'm removing more and more busy work, according to what I feel is busy work for me. We all have a different standard of that. Um, And so when I'm like, no, we're not going to fold the laundry tonight because it's fucking 11 o'clock at night, and she gets irritated because I'm not honoring the busy pattern, yeah, I'm going to let her feel that. Because what happens if I don't do the laundry to like put it away? It's death to an old story that it needed to be done immediately. Guess what? It's still sitting on my fucking floor right now, and it will get done probably today. Maybe I'll do it after I eat. I don't know. Like, the world is my oyster. But you see what I'm saying? Like, the irritation is an outward expression of a deeper pattern, right? Irritation's a pattern. in itself in form of expression of things not going my way. And a deeper pattern to that is busyness, of like not doing things that she feels that needs to be done. It also comes out when other people sometimes don't do things, and then I'll get irritated, right? So there's different ways, like, right, the emotions sometimes can be an expression of multiple different patterns. So the awareness is so important because we can sort of pinpoint and dial in on it. I know that when I'm like getting irritated with other people not doing like what she or I want them to do, it's a control thing. It doesn't really fucking matter what they do because they're having their own experience. And um a lot of times I'll suggest things because I've just especially in like the spiritual world, I've been around the block a few times. I know how people could make things easier for themselves, but if they're not in a place to receive, I'm just like throwing shit against the wall and it just makes a mess. But my ego is like, but we did this, we've been there, and it comes from a place of love. She's like, I don't want them to feel that way, but we're on our own journey, and sometimes people need to feel what they're feeling, and there's nothing that anyone can do or say to really stop that, because we all have to come to our own conclusions. So when you're having the feels, right, and you're feeling that irritation or whatever, like one of your emotions may be that you feel on a regular basis, like really be present to it and be open to receiving what's underneath, because the expression of what's coming out is really an indicator of what's going on a much deeper level, right? Give yourself some grace and some space to really move through it and be present to who you are and the experience that you're having right now. Love you lots. I'll catch you on the flip side.